Hey, this is Andy Brown from AWS Cloud Project Bootcamp bringing you another video, and this time we are working through the second part of our cloud formation. So we have set up here our networking layer. Now, whether we will tweak it as we go, we will find out. And then we have our outputs here, which is not the best defined here, but we can go here and maybe make this a little bit more clear by saying in the top left corner here, outputs. Okay, and I'll just bring this down here. It did not really change that font size, and so I'll just bring this back. So it's just a little bit more clear what these are, just in case I forget, since it is very easy to forget. So we can say networking exports. They're technically also the outputs, exports, whatever you want to call it. So, and obviously this would only go one direction. It would not be going this way, and this one would be, I just want nothing, none. And we'll take this and we'll just say like that, because those are the outputs, right? And so different ones need different things. So I think that where I would like to divide the line here is at the cluster, because it just seems like a component that I'd like to keep separate. And this is just the case for this kind of setup for using serverless containers. So, you know, if I was using EC2 instances, we don't need to do that. That would be part of the service because you launch the virtual machine with it. And in fact, would we need a service layer? Yeah, we would need, because we need that kind of infrastructure. So there's things like load balancers, auto-scaling groups, and EC2 instances. And technically that is networking, but I can kind of consider that kind of an intermediate compute layer that you put on top of your base networking. And so for that one, we would have that kind of infrastructure there. And so, you know, that would be like, I don't know, the layer, the platform. I'm not sure what you'd like to call that. But, you know, I might think of this as kind of like the platform to run my compute on. So what we'll do is we will go back over to our repo. We'll launch this up. I'm in branch week 10 again. And yes, this is a new Git pod layout. You got to get used to change. You'll notice if you do something for months in cloud, things are going to change on you. You got to adapt to that kind of thing. But we'll open this up here, and what I'm looking for is our AWS directory, our CNF directory, and in here, I'm going to make a new folder here. We're going to call this one cluster. I would love to come back to this guard and see if we can get it to work. I don't want to get too far in and then have to retroactively go back and do those files. But I do think there could be some kind of benefit to using them. So I do want to discover that, because I talk about using CFN guard. I think I had an example working 1.0 a long time ago, but I want to see if we can benefit from that. So in each of these, we'll keep creating the files. So this will be template.yaml. We could generalize our CFN file here and change it so that it's just deploy, and then the first parameter is the type. But the thing is that the parameters we might be loading here are different. So for the time being, I'm going to just keep hard coding new ones, but we might change this over to just deploy down the road. But we won't refactor too early here, because I want to see what happens if we need to pass in different variables. And that's something I think that we should try to handle here. I'm just going to chmod this new file that we made in the bin. I got to go back a directory. So chmod u plus x bin CFN, and this will be cluster deploy. So we'll go ahead and do that. And then this one is going to be cluster instead. We'll go up to our cluster template. I'm going to split this. We're going to bring over the first line here, because this generally is always the same. And then we need to bring in other things. So we need parameters. Parameters will be the first one. I'm just going to comment that out for now. And we'll need resources here. And if we need outputs, we might need outputs. Okay. I'd like my YAML to show up, so I'm just going to close these out, see if it appears now. Sometimes it's a bit slow. Right now it's not giving me YAML templates, which is a bit frustrating, like the highlighting here, but I can work through it even though we can't see what we're doing. So the thing is that we want to create a cluster, and we actually already did this before, and it was very easy to do. So over here we have our template over here. And so what I want to do is bring this resource over, and we'll just bring that here. Place this in, and I'm just going to call this one cluster, or even particular Fargate cluster, so I know what it is. And we do have the cluster name there. I think that we should probably follow our convention with the stack name cluster. So we can go here and put cluster, and this was what? Exclamation sub, double quotations, $sign curlies to do interpolation. And then we can do here, which is AWS : stack name, which is what I believe it is, to get that pseudo parameter in there. So I think that is fine. We could even be more specific to say Fargate cluster, as long as we're not getting too long here. Capacity provider is Fargate, which I think is totally fine. Let's go ahead and get this. So I don't like putting those in quotes. That's my personal preference. Let's get that link that we have in our other ones so that these are well documented. So we'll go over here and we'll go into our cluster here. We'll grab this link and we'll paste it in right here. I'll comment that out. And that way we can hold control and click through when we need to get to our relevant documentation. So I can't remember if we walked through all this stuff, but we have the capacity providers. So we plan to use Fargate. We have our cluster name, which is not necessarily required, but we're going to set it. Cluster settings. So the settings to use when creating a cluster, this parameter is used to turn on CloudWatch Container Insights for a cluster. That's something that we definitely want to use. So we're going to go over here and set that. What else do we have? We have configuration, the execute command configuration for the cluster. So, again, I've done this before, but with app mesh and service mesh, a much more complicated way to do it. And so what I want to do is I want to see if I can compare some of that code and just kind of jog my brain onto like what is that we want to bring over. So I'm going to type in cluster here, and I have one called Fargate cluster. And let's go take a look at this template here and just see if there's anything interesting that I like. So we have, in this cluster, it needs to take in subnets. There's the discovery name for the mesh and stuff like that. We'll go down over here. So I set that, so that's great. So we have that as the capacity provider. We have the cluster settings for container insights. So it looks like that's all we need to do to turn that on. So we'll go over here. And, the reason why I might have let this auto-generate the cluster name is because sometimes when you delete resources and you try to create them again, it still sees the old name, and that's really annoying. So sometimes it's just for workflow, it's better to let it to auto-generate. It's up to you what you want to do. Then here, execute command configuration, I think we're just looking at that. This is going to explicitly set logging by default, which is something that we want to have. So we'll go down here and we'll take a look at that. This probably is for setting the KMS key. We probably don't want to do a custom one because we want to save money. But we'll go over and we'll take a look here at the cluster configuration. The cluster settings, I don't think there's anything interesting there, but we'll take a look at each of those ones. And see here we have name and value. Does it say what those are? So it doesn't. It's just a generic way to pass in stuff. So we'll have to discover those settings in a different way. Declare this entity in your AWS CloudFormation template. Use the following syntax. And so then this one goes into here. Sometimes it's like that. You're clicking through to try to find the values. So we have log configuration, KMS key logging. The log configuration for the results of the execute command actions. Logs can be sent to CloudWatch Logs or Amazon S3 bucket. So we don't want to do that. We just want to use the default here. And that should be sufficient. So that is good. We'll click back a bit here into here. Then we have the default capacity provider strategy. The default capacity provider strategy for the cluster when services or tasks are run in the cluster with no launch type or capacity provider strategy specified, the default capacity provider is used. And so I don't think we set this in ours, but let's go over here and take a look at what could be set. How many tasks at minimum to run on the specified capacity provider? Only one capacity provider in a capacity provider strategy. The short name for the capacity provider, the weight designated for the relative percentage. So we only have one, which is Fargate. So I don't think this feature is relevant to us. Service Connect defaults. At this time, Service Connect did not exist. And so I don't have that to pull from. And I ended up setting up a lot of complex things in here. I ended up setting up Envoy services and everything directly and app mesh and stuff like that. So a lot of this code is basically just going to vanish for me. We did have to set up an ALB, so that's something I have to remember that we need to do. Another thing that might be useful, if we go back to our networking script, is it might be useful to list out all the things at the top that this file does. We kind of glanced over that, but I can put a description here. And so we can say this, and then I think I want that because I want new lines, and I'll say the networking layer, the base networking networking components for our stack. And so things that are getting created here would be VPC. We have a, what else do we have? An internet gateway, route table, route to the IGW, route to local. And here we could say other things like sets DCHP or DNS host names for EC2 instances. Not that like we're even using any, but if we do end up using any in ours later, only IPv6 or IPv4. IPv6 is disabled. Down below here, we had, what else did we have? We have 3 subnets, so 6 subnets explicitly associated to route table, and so 3 private public subnets numbered 1 to 3, 3 private subnets numbered 1 to 3. And it might be useful to see where this documentation shows up. Sometimes you can like set a cloud deploy button and click through and then see this documentation, and that's where that kind of gets useful. We're just using it to document our stuff here. So we'll go down below here, and yeah, we have those associations, so that looks fine. Okay, so that is nice and documented, I think. We'll go back over here, and we'll go into this. And so what I want to do here is I want to look at that Service Connect default, because that's something that I've yet to ever set before. So let's go ahead and try it out. So we'll go here and we'll say Service Connect defaults. Use this parameter to set a default Service Connect namespace. After you set a default Service Connect namespace, any new service with Service Connect turned on will do this. So this setting only applies to new services that set the enable parameter to true in the Service Connect configuration. And is that another option? That might be another option we haven't gone to yet. Go to the top here. This is the defaults. Oh, maybe they're talking about the individual services. The setting only applies to new services that set the enable parameter. So they're talking about like the next layer, which we have yet to make. Tasks that run in a namespace can use short names to connect to the services. Tasks can connect to services all across there. Tasks connect through, etc., etc. So let's go take a look here at the this in more detail here. I'll just close some of these other tabs since this is all old stuff. And it looks like we just provide a namespace. So it's as simple as that. You just put a namespace there. So I like that. Namespace. Again, the casing doesn't matter here, but I'm just going to match it anyway. And so then this would just be CRUDder. Sometimes you got to watch out in terms of what structure it wants. So here I can see these are curlies. And if I go back a step, this one here, sometimes it might be an array or it might be nested within another one, but I think that's what it is, just this here, so that's good. Tags are something we care about because we probably, well, it says the cluster name up here. So this is one of those cases where it wasn't under tags that we named it. There are other settings that we could set for our cluster, like propagating down to Fargate services. So there could be additional things that we might want to set. Okay, so for the default capacity strategy, you can see some go to Fargate, some go to Fargate Spot. We're not utilizing Fargate Spot as of yet. It would be nice to have a background job that we could run on Fargate because that is an interesting use case. I actually do have source code for that, but we ended up using our Lambda for something for the asset generation. So sometimes it makes sense to use Lambda, sometimes it makes sense to use Fargate. If you do plan to move over to Kubernetes, then you probably would prefer to keep everything in Fargate so that you aren't like using Lambda specific proprietary lockdown serverless stuff. But coming back over here, this looks great. But I'm just trying to see if there's anything of interest here. So the following example defines a cluster with the default configuration logging. Yeah, we already have that enabled. So I'm just seeing if there is anything else of interest here. No, not really. I mean, this is something that we might want to do at some point, is to specify what environment's for. Again, I think we're going to propagate those tags out via CloudFormation. We could look at that now if we want to. So if we go over here, I know in my scripts that sometimes I tell it to propagate down. So if we go back over here and we go into our bin directory here and into the deploy, you wouldn't have access to this. I'm just showing you. Tags. So you can have tags over here where these will all go to every single resource in there. And so I think this is a good practice where we are specifying the stack name because then it's very easy for us to find this stuff later on. So I'll go here and yeah, of course everything is in a stack, but if you have to search across tags, then this becomes useful. So here we can say this is CRUDR cluster. And I'll go back over to our networking layer here. And I'll do the same thing. I'll put this one here, CRUDR cluster. And there could be other things that we want to put in here, like environment, but we'll worry about that for later. But anyway, we'll go back over here because I do believe that when you create your cluster, you're supposed to set a configuration to allow you to execute so you can get into the server, like if you want to shell in. And it's really up to you whether you want to enable this or not, because if you do that, that allows people to get into your containers. And so if they were getting your AWS account, they could then use Sessions Manager to get in and mess with your containers. So it's really up to you whether you want to enable it on your production, or you can make it always turned off in production and only have it on your staging. But anyway, what I'm looking for is that option here. It should be under the ECS cluster, but doesn't look like we set it. So I know that we did this though. If we go over to our create cluster action, create cluster, it's under our bin. I mean, we only created this one time, so I'm not sure if we have it here. It's probably in our documentation. If we go over to, what week would this be in? This would have been in Fargate week. Fargate, so week 6 again. Well, it wouldn't be week 6 again, it'd be just week 6. Probably Fargate, because I probably did an ECS EC2 originally. We'll go to our journals. We'll check out week 6 here. And in here, I think that we have that option to create cluster. Maybe we just checkbox it on and we never did it any other way. So what I'm going to do is go to ECS cluster create AWS CLI, and maybe that's how we can extract those additional options. So we'll go over here. And so we want to have that execute command. If you were trying to wonder what I'm talking about here, if we go over to our console and we go over to ECS. So it'll be more clear if I just pointed out directly. There is an option in here. Probably if we update the cluster, we'll see it. Yeah, I'm not seeing it. But I could have swore that we had to set it at the cluster level. Maybe I'm mistaken. Let me go over here, and maybe it only happens when we create a service. How to shell into a Fargate container. You need ECS execute on the task definition of your containers. The next update for the IAM role to include the SSM permissions. So I thought there was like a checkbox. I guess I forgot. I mean, obviously we got it to work. I just can't remember everything, but I guess that's more for our task definitions. But anyway, so I mean, we have our cluster set up here. Another thing that we will need is an ALB for sure. So what I'm going to do is go back and just take a look at what I did over here. So I created a load balancer. And it's interesting that there's this here. Oh yeah, that's the load balancer. So we'll need a load balancer and a listener. So let's go ahead and bring those over. So what I'll do is I'll go over here and I want another one here called load balancer. Load balancer. Balancer. Am I spelling that right? Balancer. Balance. ALB. How about that? You can't make any mistakes with ALB. Okay, because that's what we are setting up. So I'm just going to go with ALB because I know exactly what that means. And then we'll go ahead and find that documentation. So this is what we're looking for documentation. I'm just going to bring this over in this tab here. And what we'll do is we'll grab this. So before there used to just be classic load balancer, and now there's application load balancer, network load balancer, global gateway load balancer. So the version 2s are the, I don't know what gateway is, or global, whichever that new one is, but version 2 is network and ALB. We want to use an ALB because they're just easier to use in our case, and with the service connector, we found out that we can use it. So we'll go down below here, and so this is going to be our type. So we'll bring this down here, and we'll just say type. And then we will put in properties. So this is for the cluster. Go to the load balancer. So we have IP address type. The IP address type, the possible values are IPv4, dual stack. You can't specify dual stack for load balancer with a UDP or TCP UDP listener. I mean, we don't need IPv6, and the load balancer we're using, or sorry, the VPC we're using doesn't have IPv6 enabled. Should we just set it to dual stack so that we can use IP6 in the future? Possibly, but I'm just going to go with IPv4. Again, just double check what I set for my settings for my load balancer. Notice that I set IPv4 as well. So that's what I'm going to do. So we'll go here and we will say IPv4. So IPv4, I believe, is what it needs to be set as. Great. We'll go to the next one, load balancer attributes. We can go in here and see what there is. Specify an attribute for the ALB, network load balancer, gateway load balancer. So we have deletion protection, load balancing across zones, access logs, which actually are useful. Deny all internet gateway traffic, that's for IPv6, S3 prefix, timeout in seconds. So there are a lot of options that we can possibly set here. So there might be something that we might want to set. We'll go back a step here and bring in load balancer attributes. I can tell that when I did that, I kept it nice and simple, but whoops. It's really frustrating that when I undo, it doesn't actually undo properly. It's very frustrating. So I'm not this clumsy. It's an issue with working in the browser in VS Code. I really wish I was using Vim so I could show you how fast I am, but you might not appreciate it because then I'll be going too fast. But anyway, we'll go here and start putting some values in here. So yeah, that's one item. I'm sure there's something that we need from the attributes here. But we'd have to read through every single one. Fail open enabled. Indicate whether to allow WAF enabled load balancer to route request targets if unable to forward. Indicate whether HTTP2 is enabled. The possible values are true and false. I forget. I do cover this in my course, but HTTP1 versus 2 versus 3. Let's see if we can get some basic information here. Rather, present the reasons behind moving between 1, 2, and 3. Okay. I guess the question is like, should you be using 2 or 3? Let me just read this for a second, come back with a summary, okay? Anyway, apparently HTTP2 is like more efficient, but there are some security issues. HTTP3 is really great, but whether we should be using it right now, I don't know. Sometimes there are different versions of things and they're all acceptable to use. Sometimes ones replace the others, but they might not be ready to use. So I'm not sure what the case is here, but let's go over and see what we can actually choose, because we saw HTTP2. What other options do we actually have with AWS for creating our VPCs? Because that's what I'm interested in. And so we'll go over to sign into the console. And here I'm going to go over to EC2. Load balancer. We'll create one here. IPv4 dual stack. I want to see the stuff for HTTP. It might be an option that we see somewhere else. So if we actually go to our load balancers here and we look at the one we already have, we go to our attributes here. We have HTTP2 on, so it's not like we can go to HTTP3, but I just want to know what we have here. So HTTP2 is going to be on Tails versions and cipher headers. That's interesting. So let's turn on 2. Now, it might already be explicitly set, but let's go take a look at what the options are. So we have here this. I'm going to grab this, and I'll paste it in here as the name. Paste, and then the value needs to be true. So let's put in true here. Is there anything else we want? Enables you to modify, preserve, or remove X4 headers in the HTTP request before the application load balancer sends the request to the target. The possible values are append, prefend, and remove. This might be something that we're interested in later on, but right now I'm not sure. So preserve host header indicates whether the application load balancer should preserve the host header in the HTTP request and send it to the target without any change to the possible values, true or false. This actually might be something that we might want to do. So I'm going to bring it over right now and leave it with the default value. But this might matter to you, because if you need to see the host headers in their natural form, this is very important when you have a multi-tenant application, which is what TeacherSeat is. Luckily, we do not have to deal with those restrictions, but I'll set it to whatever the default is. So we'll put that one on there. And what we can do is also pull up this particular page, because it has the documentation for those attributes, which is nice. Indicate whether HTTP headers within valid fields are removed for the load balancer. This is false. Again, you might want that true. The timeout, the idle timeout value in seconds, the range is 1 to 40 seconds. The default is 60 seconds. Depends if we changed it or not, because it was really annoying to wait for the load balancer there, and we could speed up our times. So let's just see what we set as our setting here. It's still 60 seconds, so I suppose we can leave that alone. We do have some other ones here. So deletion protection, I'm going to set this to false for now, but maybe we might want to flip that down the road. This is more like if somebody came in and they accidentally deleted your load balancer. I mean, if we're doing policy as code, this is something that we might want to set explicitly and then have a policy to tell us if we run into this issue. We'll go back over here. Indicates whether cross-zone load balancing is enabled. The possible values are true or false. The default network load balancer gateway is false. The default for application load balancer is true. So we do technically want it to go cross-zone if we have more than one. So to distribute it to multiple services. So that's something we'll definitely want. So we'll say true. Again, just doing this so that it's explicit. We know exactly what we're setting. Delete and protection enabled. Right now did we bring this in already? Yes, we did. Access logs. This is something that we might want to have for debugging. Some people just said they were running into the free tier with this, which I was actually quite surprised, but I'm going to bring it in anyway, and then we can just comment it out if we don't want to use it right now. And I'll just do this here, and so this will be whatever we want that be. So bucket name. I don't have a bucket right now for the S3 logs, at least not for this. The prefix location for the access logs, bring that over as well. Name, value, and so right now I'm just going to comment this out in case we want to turn on logs. Okay, so we have our load balancer. We also have to have a listener. We actually have two different listeners, right? Go over here. There are some other settings that I would like to be set. I'm not sure if it's I think it's at the target group. It's not here. Let me just double check. Attributes. There's also this network mapping stuff assigned from CIDR range. I didn't see that yet, so is that an option? We do have this load balancer attributes. We'll click into that. I'm not sure if that's what we were just looking at. Over here. Yeah, that's what we were just looking at, so that's fine. The name of the load balancer, this name must be unique per region. You can have a maximum of 32 characters, must only be alphanumeric characters, things like that. So that's something that we could set as well. I don't know if I set it for mine here. Probably the reason I did not set it was because, oh no, I did. So we did it that way. So I'll go back over here. And I like to usually have the name at the top so I can easily find it. Notice this one's name. The other one here's cluster name. They alternate between them. We'll paste this in here, and this will be ALB. Also, the load balancer there is a network load balancer, so it's actually good that we're not directly copying that other one because it wouldn't work correctly. Then we have our scheme, so this is going to be internet facing. Internet facing. Let's close this tab because we keep looking at it. Security groups, the IDs of the security groups for the load balancer, we definitely want to set security groups. So I'm just gonna have this as my last setting because this one has a lot of stuff in it. So this is supposed to be an array of security group IDs. So we'll probably create our security group here, subnet mappings. That was the thing that I was just looking at here. Okay. The IDs of the public subnet, you can specify one or per. You must specify either subnets or subnet mappings, but not both. You can specify one per availability zone. You must specify either subnets or subnet mappings. You must specify subnets from at least 2 AZs. You cannot specify EIP address. You can specify only one subnet per availability zone. Well, what's the difference? Well, here's a better question. What did I use? Because that's what we're going to use, subnets. So we'll use subnets. There's probably, there's a reason why, but let's just take the wisdom of my knowledge and know that subnets is newer, and we'll use that, or is better for our case. The IDs of the public subnets, so that's fine. Tags, that's fine. Type of load balancer, this is very important. So this is going to be application. So I guess gateway is considered a version 2 load balancer. Type, application. Okay, great. So that's set up. We need to have our security group, our listeners, our target groups. So we're not done yet. While we're going through this, we'll just keep putting our documentation here. So we'll have description here. And we have, how do we call the other one? This one here. This is the networking and compute services and base and compute services to run Fargate containers. Okay, so I mean, like the compute is really networking and compute configuration, I guess. Cluster configuration. Support Fargate containers. So we have here our ECS Fargate cluster. We have a application load balancer. We will need to have a HTTPS listener. We'll need to have an HTTP listener. We'll need to have redirects to HTTPS listener. This will send naked domain to front end target group. Send API subdomain to backend target group. We need a backend target group, a front end target group. Only IPv4 only. See if there's anything else we were doing here that is notable to do this. I mean, it's internet facing, of course. So we'll have ALB security group that we need to add. Okay. All right, so we'll keep working at this here. Down below, we need to have our listener. So let's go look up listeners. We have one here, but it's going to be different again because we are using ALB, not NLB. So it might be slightly different. Listener, ALB, AWS, CFN. And here we have our listener, and that might have listener rules underneath, of course. So stuff just keeps stretching out. So this will be our HTTPS listener. And then we'll say type here. This will get indented. And we will go and bring in this type. But yeah, CDK could speed this up a lot because you could just have like no configuration. It'll tell you exactly what it wants. It'll figure out the rest for you. But again, then you wouldn't learn all this interesting stuff. We'll go look at this one. We'll scroll down here. So we have ALPN policy. I don't know what that is. Application layer protocol negotiation policy. I don't even know what that is. What is that? Is that new, or I just never knew that it was there? Now supports ALPN. Okay, well, we're not doing an NLB, so we can't utilize that. So we'll ignore that. Because it doesn't say if this is for NLB or yeah, so ALB or NLB. So some of these might be specific to specific load balancers. We definitely do have certificates that we need to attach. So we'll bring that over. Okay, so we'll go here and have certificates. This will be under properties. We'll go over here to the next one here, default actions. The actions for the default rule. You cannot define a condition for a default rule. Okay, it says it's required. So I guess we will have to have that there. We can go look at this one and see if we can learn anything from it. So this one just forwards to a target group. That's probably what we're going to end up doing. And then we have our load balancer ARN. That's probably true as well. But we'll come back to this one here in a second, load balancer ARN. So we'll go here. And we want to ref the ALB. Now the question is, what does it use for this? So I'll open this up. And we'll take a look at the return values. This passes the logical ID. Ref returns... Oh, sorry. It returns the ARN. So it already returns what we want it to return. So that's great. So that is correct here. That will produce what we want. We'll go back over here. I know we need to do stuff here. So I'm just going to indicate that. Port, probably we do want to set. So we'll bring that here. This will be 443, I assume. Look at this one. This one's port 80. Well, actually... It depends on where termination occurs. So in that other one, the NLB, it passes through app mesh first, and so termination might be happening at a different place. But this would be listing on 443 or whatever what port is for HTTPS? 443? 443. Sometimes I think it's 433, so I just double check that always. So I think that's fine. We have protocols. Is this something we need to set for ALB? The supported protocols are HP and HTTPS. So we'll go here, and this protocol is going to be HTTPS because that's what this one is doing. The security policy that defines which protocols or ciphers are supported. For more information, security policies for the application load balancer. I don't think we really need to set this. We can open up and take a look. Because you can say like which ones are acceptable and which ones aren't. I don't know if that's required. I don't think so. So we'll just go with whatever the default is, but you can see there's a lot of different policies that we can choose from for this. And it's going to be based on like what type of TLS and ciphers you support. So I'm just going to go with the default because I just do not know for that. We'll go back over here. And so we definitely want our certificates. So I guess we'll look at that first because that should be pretty easy. Certificates. We are in the load balancer, or we got to get to the listener here, sorry. Here. And we will go into this. And notice that it's showing an array. So just consider that as an array. And that's what I'm talking about. Sometimes it's curly, sometimes it's not. So it has an array, and then inside of it, we have the ARN. So if that's the case, right, it actually would be a hyphen. So it wouldn't be this because it said there was an array here. And to start an array, we do a hyphen. And then we can start the ARN as the first value in here like that. Certificate ARN. So, we could generate out the certificate here. But I don't want to do that because it is kind of a pain to set up certificates in CloudFormation and to verify them. It just feels like one of those components where, there's sometimes there's like S3 buckets or this like ARNs where you just do not want to, or sorry, like certificates, like what's the service acronym called? ACM, where you just don't want to really put that into CloudFormation. Some people might want to do that, but I personally don't want to do that. Unless there's like you're applying policy as code or some kind of other thing to check against the stack. But I would personally prefer not to do that. So we are not going to create the resources in here, and I don't recommend you to do that either. But we do need to have the certificate ARN. So for this, we are just going to go here and say ref, and then paste that in here. And in the top here for our parameters, we'll go here and say type string, because I don't think there's one for certificate ARNs. And we'll go here and say, well, we need the name of it here. And so this is something we'll have to explicitly pass in. We can go ahead and check the parameter types, parameter CFN, just to see if there is one. I really don't think there is a specific parameter type for that. There might be a generic one for ARNs, but I don't think so. Image ID, instance ID, security group, volume, instance ID. So nothing for that, okay? Default actions, we'll take a look at that. So we'll go back over here and we will go into our listener and we'll click into default actions. And so there's quite a few things here. You can order them, obviously. We'll go here and it says that we have to have a default one. So we'll go back to the documentation I had to save us some trouble here, because we're going to have a default one. So target group ARN, that's probably what we want to do. Let's go back over here and take a look. Where did we go here? So target group ARN, redirect config, that's if we're going to do a redirection, which we will do for the other one. The order is fine. We're really only going to have one anyway. Forward config, since we are doing that, that's probably what we have to specify. I guess we're not really doing anything special with the forwarding, but I guess if there was additional stuff that we had to do, we could do that. Fixed response config, authentication OIDC config. Okay, great. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go here and we're going to set up a type here. This will be forward. And then for this, we will have our value, I think it's supposed to be. Is that what it wants? We'll go over here. And that's just going to reference our other target group here. Yeah, this one's target group ARN, so we'll actually bring that in, sorry. Target group ARN, and we'll just say, whatever is ref target group. This will be front end target group, front end target group, because that's where we want it to go by default. So we need to have an HTTP listener in here. Okay, HTTP listener. Did I spell this listener wrong here? That looks wrong to me. Paste. There we go. That's better. We'll go ahead and paste this in here as well. We'll put a colon. And this needs to have a type. It's going to be the same type up here. This one's on HTTP, so it does not need... I want to bring these up here. These are kind of more important. It does not need the certificate because it's on port 80. It has to have a default action. We need to reference the ARN. I'm just going to put this here. Let's put that here. So it will have a default action. This one's going to be redirect. But it's not going to redirect to a target group ARM. It's going to redirect to another load balancer or listener. So we go here, and so we're going to need this redirect config. And it looks like it takes something. So we'll click into it. We'll go down here. Sometimes it's just easier to look at the examples. So protocol, HTTPS, 443, hosts, things like that. So yeah, we'll go take a look at what our load balancer does. I think we set up a redirect. I hope we did. And we go into our listeners here. And it has host, 443, query path, status code 302. I always don't know if it's better to do 302 or 301, whatever the options are. Yeah, this one does 301, but I always go with 302. I think at one point, I did research this. If somebody decides otherwise, I will take their advice. So any boot camper that wants to research that, I appreciate that. So HTTPS 443 host path query. I'm going to change this to 302. So 301 versus 302 HTTP codes. Redirects indicates the page is permanently moved to a new location. 302 means the move is only temporarily. I guess it's permanent because it's always going to be over there, but I just don't know in this case what it's supposed to be. So I guess we'll go with 301, even though I said I was going to go with 302. So I'm just flip-flopping there. I'm not sure why these are underlying with a problem. Well, I do know we have to indent this. But I don't know why this is showing curlies. Nested mappings are not allowed in compact mappings of YAML. What do you mean? It's still complaining here. Implicit keys need to be set on a single line. Do I have like a trailing space here? No. This one doesn't have a problem. Trying to figure out what its problem is. I don't see a problem. We copy pasted this from here. So we went here, right? And we went down here. And we did that. So, okay, that fixed it. I guess there was something wrong. Whatever it is, it's fixed. Great. So we have this one to redirect to the other one. Security groups are here. So we need to define a security group. I probably have an example of this one in here. Security group. Load balancer security group. Great. So this is what I'm looking for. I mean, we can just Google that. Again, I'm just trying to always show you how you can get to it yourself. So we say AWS security group CFN. here. And so what we'll do here is just grab this one. Actually, we'll grab this link first because we know that we would like that. And I will go and place this here. ALB security group. Or ALB SG, because that's pretty much always what we do for that there. And I'll paste this link in here. We'll get our type in. I'll go grab that. Again, I don't like the double quotation, so it's just up to you how you like to do it. That did not grab what I wanted, even though I right-clicked and went copy. I'll go back here, and we'll do a paste. Okay, so we have group description, group name, group. What did I do for this? So this reference to VPC ID, we have a group description and an ingress rule. Okay, so that's something that we can follow along with here. Description of the security group. And I think it's required. You have to put it in. It's always really annoying. Ingress traffic from the internet. We could also just say like public facing SG for our CRUDR ALB, if we prefer as such. We'll go back over here, group name. So this is the name of the security group. Ups to cannot start with SG. That's a rule that they have there. So I usually end it with that. So this one, the group name is the ALB. So I'm going to bring in the stack name here. We'll do sub for substitution. And get that out of there. I don't know what that was. And then we'll go here, and this will be AWS : stack name. And then here, this will be ALB SG. I just brought these lowercase so the SG was a bit more clear. Doesn't have to be perfect. Security egress rules, ingress rules. So we definitely need both of these, I think. Let's go over here. Well, I guess the egress defaults are fine. We just really need the ingress. So we'll go back over here and click into this. And notice it doesn't, type of list of ingress. So we'll go down here and maybe it shows an example of it. So we have a lot of options here. I don't want a headache, so I'm just going to go grab it from our code because I remember trying to set these before and it's kind of annoying. So we'll just go ahead and bring that in here like this. And we'll fix the indentation level. You know what? We forgot to put properties in here. Properties. Properties. Like this. And we'll go to the next level. Okay, so that looks good to me. Yeah, this would allow for 443 on 00 and for 8080 so that it can refer to the other one. So those are correct. The indentation here looks a little bit upset. We'll go here and put it like that. I'm not sure why this is a problem here. Nesting mappings are not allowed. It's because this one's indented into the other one. So we just have to fix that. It's just a indentation issue. Okay, so that is what we wanted to do. And so we can go up here and reference that ALB SG. How did we do it for the other one? Just so that we can speed this up a little bit for our actual listener or our load balancer. Load balancer. Okay, so we go here. Yeah, so it's like that, -ref. So we'll do that as well. You know, as long as we're able to read what this is, then there's no problem, right? You can call it application load balancer security group if you want to. But it's just, in my head, I know ALB SG, like, it always converts over to that, and that's what I'm going to keep with. And then less spelling mistakes for me, which is nice. So there are other options here that we could set maybe. So here, it doesn't say the description, so that might be something that might be fun to do. This is very restrictive, so we're going to keep it simple and keep it all in caps. So this will be internet, HTTP, S, and this would be internet HTTP. Okay. And this all looks okay. Let's go take a look at our load balancer and see what else we need to do. So this has one rule. This one has two rules. That one's the forwarding rule. Let's go in here and take a look at our rules. So we have one rule, match on API, and then the default one, which is last priority. So we do need to have an additional rule here. Let's go take a look at how we can go ahead and do that. I think my code doesn't have that example for the NLB. So we'll just have to, at least I don't think it does, because when I was doing this with AppMesh, the routing was being handled, the rules were being handled by AppMesh or Service Connect. AppMesh, yeah. One of the services, Service Mesh. Service Mesh, AppMesh, sorry. Getting them mixed up because there's another service in there. But so we will have to create like a loosey-goosey target or rule over here. So we'll go find that. We'll go back and click into this one because a lot of times the associated things we need are just like right beside them. So here you can see load balancer listener certificate, load balancer listener rule. So we need an additional listener rule. So we'll get that one and bring that over here. What I want here is another rule. So this is going to be our API rule, ALB rule. Okay, we can do that there. And we need to specify its type. If I'm slowing down, it's because I have yet to eat breakfast, so I might take a break here and go eat. Properties. There's always one of my Twitter followers where it's like, Andrew, go eat. Properties. We have actions, conditions, listener ARN, priority. So the priority we want to have should be higher than the other one, I suppose. Listener ARN. I'll just bring all these over because we probably need all of them. And we do know that the listener ARN returns based on the ALB. So we'll go here and say ref. What do we call it? HTTP listener. HTTPS. Oh, that's the wrong file here. I'm searching a file that doesn't have our code. We'll go here, split this one. HTTPS. Whoops. HTTPS. There it is. Okay, so I'll go here and hopefully this returns the yarn. We haven't ran into it too often, but I'm telling you that there are cases where like you have to use get attribs. So we go here. This returns the yarn. Okay, great. It's not always the case, I promise you. So that's reference. What did we say the priority was for ours? If we go into the rules here, this has a priority of 1. This has a priority of default. So we'll go here and set this to priority 1. And then we have our conditions. So we'll go back over here. So I guess it's going to be like if then match for HTTP host and then what it's going to do. So we'll look at conditions because that is what we need to set probably first. So go back over to conditions here. And what did we do to do that? We were setting HTTP host header. So this will be host header. So we need to look at how that looks like. Be nice if they had some examples for us. They don't. But we can figure this out. Because it kind of gets annoying because then it might be something inside of something here. Let's go here for a second. I got to just double check, making sure we don't have like an array or something weird going on here. So this is default actions. Where did we go here? This is our listener. That's not what we want. We want this one, rule. Might be in this tab here. So conditions, and this is an array, and then it says rule condition. So we'll click into that. Okay, and it's just sometimes they'll have like rule condition inside of it, but we don't have to do that. That's fine. Okay, so we are changing the host header config. So this is what we're going to need. So we'll then go here and do this. And then this has its own object. And so this is curly. So then we have values. I'm going to go back here for a second. Just double checking, triple checking the structure here. Host, go back up here. Host header config. Yeah, so it's just that. We'll go here. HTTP header name, and then the values. So that's what we want here. Go ahead and paste that in. And we'll go back over to our load balancer, see how we can translate that over. I mean, we know that the value will be this. The string to compare against the value. So that's going to be this. And then the other one's going to be probably the option of what we need it to do. So the name of the HTTP header field, the max size is 40 characters. The name of the HTTP header field, the maximum size is 40 characters. Header name is case insensitive. That allows characters that are specified. Oh, sorry, we're on the wrong configuration. I'm sorry. That we're supposed to be on host header, and it just has values, and that makes sense. And it's going to do an exact match. It says say the following characters are supported wildcard. Okay, or 0 or word and question mark, exactly one character match. So what we'll do here is take out this part because that's wrong. And is values, yes, it's an array of strings. So that is correct. Now we'll go take a look at our actions for this. We'll go back to our actions. Where are you, actions? Listener rule condition. Got to go back up a step. Here we are. So that takes an array. So yeah, that's the action there. That's fine. So we'll go back over to this. We'll click into our action. What do we want this to do? We want this to forward, right? Oh yeah, we've seen these before. So this will just be our forward config like we had before. So we'll go back up here and we'll just scroll up to the default action, and it's just going to be this. That's what we want it to do. But this is going to go to the back end, not the front end, right? So that's the key difference, is this one is for the back end rule. Paste this in here. Oh, for frick's sakes, come on. Come on, just let me copy paste. Copy, thank you. Paste. Drives me crazy. Okay, so we'll do this. This is going to go to the backend target group. Okay. And you know what? It is almost noon. I got to go eat something. I'll be back in a second, okay? All right, I am back, and I am eating my oats. That's what I eat every morning. Is oats, so apologies, but I do need to get food in here, and we need to keep pace. And the other thing I always have, actually, I'll show you one of my cups here. So this is a custom cup that Baco got for me, which is like Niners. So Niners is the baseball team in Deep Space Nine. They're called the Niners, and so my name's on here as well. I guess the team number must be 2370. I don't know what the numbers are for, but there's two numbers on each side of it, 2375. It's probably the year. It's probably the year of the baseball team in the future. I love this mug. It's a really nice mug. Anyway. Sorry. Super hungry. Anyway, we were doing something here. I don't know if we set up these target groups yet. I don't think so. So we have backend, frontend, TG. So we'll go here and we'll have backend TG and frontend TG. So we'll go here and do that. We'll look up target groups, CFN AWS. We'll go here. As per routine, we'll go ahead and grab the type here as such. Paste that in, type. It's case insensitive, so it doesn't really matter if that was a lowercase or uppercase, but I'll just do it properly anyway. We'll go here, copy this, bring this in. We'll bring this in. And we have properties here. So we'll go here and we will set our properties as such. What options do we need to set? We have a lot of stuff here. Well, we have our health check stuff. We definitely want that. IP address, probably not, because we're sending to... Well, actually, we might have to set one. Well, anyway, we'll take a look here. Just give me a second here. I just want to eat a bit more and I'll get back to it, okay? All right, so I'm back, and yeah, we're trying to find these target groups. Let's go ahead and do that. So over here, you can see we have a lot of interesting fields. And so I'm sure I've defined target groups somewhere in here. So let's just take a look and see if they look any similar. Target group ARN, envoy target group, and yeah, okay, that doesn't look too bad. So what we'll do is go over here, and I'll go down to an example, and these examples aren't the greatest. So we'll go up to our syntax, and we definitely want the health check stuff. So we'll bring all this stuff over, and I'll go down below to the front end. We'll do the front end first. Okay. And I'll just indent that there, like such. And we will go, I'll just go grab all of it. We'll go grab all of it, and then we'll just fill it in as we go. Okay. So we'll go up here to the top. And the port is going to be on whatever the operational port is. So for this one here, I think what we can do is set that as a parameter. So that might be something that might be smart to do. So let's just say front end container port. We'll just say front end port. I'll say type string. It's actually a number, but that's fine. And I mean, it might matter. It might want it to be a number. So I'll just say number here if I can. Let's see if we actually have that as a type. Can we have a number here? An integer or float, AWS CloudFormation validates the parameter as a number. Yeah, so I'm going to do number here, but it really depends on what this takes, because if this is integer, so clearly it would be a number over here as well. And so the default here is, what, 3000 is what we did that for that. Oops, I picked up a cup with really old water in it. I meant to pick up this one. That was gross. Sorry. And we'll go down here and we'll say backend port. And this one's going to be 8000. I believe that's what we set it as. Actually, I don't remember if it's that or 4567. So I'm going to just open up our Docker file here for our backend. Did we specify it here? 4567. Okay, so that's what that is. So we'll go 4567 here. Go back over to this tab. And so that's our backend and our front end port. So we'll go down to our front end here, and this is going to reference front end port, and that'll be the same thing here. So we'll have back end port. Health check enabled, absolutely. We definitely want to have that set. So we'll say true, true, and true. For the name here, we're just going to do sub, double quotations, AWS stack name, and this one will be front-end TG, target group, and we'll do the same thing up here. This will be back-end TG. Okay, and the next thing is the health second intervals in seconds. This stuff really gave us quite a bit of a headache, so I want to make sure that we do turn these down so our life is a little bit easier. So I'll go into target groups here, and we'll just take a look and do a comparison. So we'll go into the backend one here. We'll do health checks. And here we have 3, 2, 5, 30, 200. Is it the same for the backend? 3, 2, 5, 30, 200. You know, I kind of wanted to be a little bit quicker than that. So, you know what we can do is we probably should lift these up in the top there. I'm just trying to think about that. Because these might be things you want to override at some point. Because if you were to change them, you wouldn't want to just update the code. You'd want to change your configuration value. So we'll go up here and we'll have one for... and also another thing is like these target groups, you know, should they be here or should they be in part of the service when you launch them? Because let's say every time you add a service, it has a different API endpoint that would route somewhere else. That might be something you want to consider. But for the time being, we'll leave them in here. But there's an option where that target group might belong with the service. I'm not 100% sure. Because I've done this all like a few different ways, quite a few times. But anyway, what we want is health check stuff. So I'm going to do HC, because these will get so long if I do anything else. So this will just indicate like HC stands for health check. Okay. And so this will be health check. Here we go, front end, health check interval. And then we'll have the path, the port. That is not what I wanted. Of course, it never, ever, ever copies the way I want it to, of course. But anyway, we'll grab all these here, copy this. We'll paste this. For this, the protocol is going to be HTTP for both. I'm just going to double check, make sure what that is called. HTTP, that is right. Because at this point, the TLS, the certificate, has been terminated. And so now it's unencrypted traffic at this point. If we were using mutual TLS, so that would be end-to-end encryption, we might have to have that there. Right now, we do not have that applied. So let's actually go double check. Is it HTTP or HTTPS that we're using here? This is using HTTP, but understand that when you orchestrate services, container services, service-to-service communication, which we really aren't doing yet because we don't have more than one backend component deployed, you'd want to have MTLS between them. Like just the certificate between them. But at this point, we're using this one. It could be a different certificate too. I'm not like a super expert on that, but I'm just you know, talking about that in general. But yeah, this will be that one here for the front end. We do want them enabled, and so here. Oh, I guess we could just leave them as the name as. We don't have to. I was trying to be fancy, make it HC, but maybe we'll just use the full name here. It's not like that matters. Second interval, so we'll go here. I'll paste that in. And so we'll have one for the front and the one from the back. So we'll say front end here. And then they'll have the back end here. Sorry. And so this will be type number. This will be number. This will be number. This will be number. This will be number. Okay, then we'll have type string. So string, 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 string. And we can go here and just take this out. And then what I'll want to do is default all these. So I'll go here and say default. Interval in seconds. What do we say for that interval? This one is set to what? 30 seconds. I guess that's okay. I probably want it like 20, even 15 seconds, so it's lower. Let's go here and take a look. I just can't tell if I did this or I did this for a boot camper because I've changed this so many times. The low setting is 5 seconds. Yeah, 20. We could probably get away with 15, to be honest. But I'm going to put it at 15 because I really do want these to be low. And I'm just going to risk if we have timeouts here. I just noticed I spelled front end wrong, so that's really unfortunate. So we'll go and fix that here. Not that it's too bad. And so that'll be the default for the front end. Same story for the back end. The back end, we want that to be the same. For the health check path, this is the front end, so this one is just going to be default to here. I believe it's just here. We don't need to put the quotation there, but or doubles, but I'm just putting that in there anyway, just because it's a / and that's kind of a funny character. We're working in YAML. So this one is API health check. Is the path here. We have to spell it right though. The port, I think by default it knows to map to the port, so I don't know if we even have to set that. We'll go take a look here. The default port is 80, so the port the load balancer will use, and that's technically true. They will both be port 80. I thought like we might have had to set the port of the container, but I think that this will work if we do this. Okay. The protocol here, I didn't mean to replace it that way. I meant to do this default 80. And then we'll go down to this one. I suppose we can specify the protocol here. There's no reason not to. We'll go here, default HTTP, and then here the protocol is the default here. This is check timeout in seconds. So we said interval is that, but what's the timeout? So timeout is 5, interval is 30. So here, default. And then we'll go down to this one. That'll be default. We'll go to the threshold now. So healthy threshold will do 2. And for the other threshold, there's the unhealthy threshold somewhere here. All the way where? Where is it? Where's unhealthy? Unhealthy. Well, I know that one definitely exists, so what I'll do is go back all the way up here. Maybe we just forgot to copy paste it. Because we'll have the unhealthy threshold, back end unhealthy threshold, I want this to be 2 as well. We'll bring this one up here to the front end here, and I'll just say front end. Just gonna go here, front end, because it's getting a little bit hard to see what I'm doing, right? Actually, it's the back end here, sorry. We'll bring this one up here, and then we'll choose this one as the front end. Okay, and we could even further bring these into their appropriate places. So yeah, like one really nice thing about Terraform is that you just make a bunch of files and it just like suctions them all up. And so if you need to easily split files, you can definitely do that in Terraform, no problem. But here you see there's a little bit more work here. So I'm just checking to make sure these are all set. They are, so that is great. We're going to go over here and then we'll just go set them. And so I know it'll always be HTTP, but we'll just do it this way anyway. And so I'm just going to do ref like this. And I know it doesn't have the front in there. I'll get that in a second. I just want to type this all in manually. I'm not sure about that IP address type yet, so we'll just ignore that for the second. These also need to be indented. I don't know why they're not. I must have messed them up. Yeah, so that will be that here. And so I'll just go to here and put front end in front of all these. Front end, front end, front end, front end, front end, front end, front end. IP address type, not sure right now at this point. So we'll go up. And we will go ahead and paste these in. We're going to leave it true because if we don't have it true, that wouldn't make any sense because we always kind of need to, if we set all these, we have to have that there. Let's hover over this. Map keys must be unique. So this must already exist here. Yeah, it does. So that is a mistake. Because we had it twice, I suppose. I'll go here and then I'll take this one out. Because we don't need to have one here for that, right? That one we don't need. So, looks fine. I'm looking for the healthy uncheck threshold. Where is that? Oh, it's down here. Okay, so I'll bring that up and bring it with the other ones. That's why we missed it, because it was down below. It was hiding from us. And I'll just go here, do ref, and we'll paste this in, unhealthy. We will copy these. And we'll go ahead and paste these in like that. And then I'm just going to do a substitution on the part where it says front end and change that to back end. There we go. So those are now changed to backend. So those are in good shape. Let's go take a look at some of the other ones. So we have IP address type. IPv4, okay. That is not something that I would care to lift up. We'll go to the next one. Default is IPv4. Matcher, health checks. The HTTP or GCPR codes to use when checking for successful response. For a target group with a protocol, the range is 200 and stuff. So this is, I think, the status code we're matching against, right? So here, I'm not sure why it shows it like that, but let's go in here and take a look at what it wants. HTTP code, okay, and then we probably put 200, yeah. Okay, so HTTP code. 200, I think. That's probably what it wants. If not, we will find out soon enough. And there are tools like that, at least on the VSX marketplace, but at least in the Microsoft GitPod marketplace, that it would actually check in real time and tell you if there's a problem. So, you know, we don't have to be running CFN lint manually, but I don't want to figure that out, so I'm not going to do that. We have our protocol, so this is going to be HTTP. I think we had set that before, no? Okay, well, we'll set it again. HTTP, and then we'll bring that up here. The name's already set. I don't think we'll need tags right now, so I'll just take the tags out. We'll look at protocol version. HTTP2, I believe, is what we're using, so we'll do that. Okay. What is next? We have target group attributes, targets, target types, things like that. Let's look at target types. That seems like something easier to set. For this, we don't have to specify the target types because the type of the target you must specify when registering targets with the group. You can't specify targets for a target group using more than one target type. I mean, we're not registering them at this point. They will get registered by the cluster, so that's not something we need to do, or by the service, I should say. So I don't think we need to set this. Right now, we don't have targets, so we'll remove that. Let's look at target group attributes. There could be some interesting things here. So if we go here to our attributes, there's this deregistration delay. That thing drives me crazy. I definitely want to turn that off. I never noticed this down here below, but I definitely want to change that deregistration delay. So we'll go look for that. That's under the here. Okay. And so in here, we want that deregistration delay, if we can find it. We can also read what else there is here. So timeout in seconds. Oh, that's that first one. So let's go here and definitely set this to 0. I do not care about pre-flight inbound requests. There's nothing sensitive in our application. We don't need stickiness, at least I don't think so right now. So that might be something for later. The following attributes are supported by ALBs. Indicates whether cross-zone balancing is enabled. I don't know if we have to fiddle with these. I'm going to leave them alone to their defaults. I think that it's probably smart enough to do that. But the thing is, it doesn't always... The reason why it's important to check these is because sometimes the console will do things for you, but they'll actually be defaulted. But anyway, so I think that's fine. We do have to put our VPC ID in here. And so that will come through a cross-reference stack, which we have yet to do. So we'll just put cross-reference stack here, cross-reference stack. But yeah, we have our front end defined there. Let's go take a look at our back end one, which is like one above it. front end. So here we stopped at protocol version. So we're just missing this here. So bring that here like that. Okay. So we still have to fill in that value, which is not a big deal. And so it's bringing in the VPC ID. And so we definitely know that we're going to need that. I'm going to go back to our diagram. And I just want to indicate that we definitely need this one. Because we might have over-selected these and like brought some values that I don't actually need. And so we might want to fix that. So we definitely need that. I know we need subnets, but we'll take a look at which one, because we have CIDR blocks and then we have subnet IDs. We might not need both. We might not need the CIDR blocks. It's okay if we leave them in here and we don't use them, but like, because sometimes you just want the output so you can quickly see them at a glance, but we should indicate which ones are actually going to be used. So let's go back here and scroll up, because we did leave some things empty, I think. So we'll go up here. ALB, logging. Maybe not. Maybe it's fine. So, I mean, I think that's everything we need. Let's go to the top here. We did this. ALB, HPS, HTTP listener, backend, front end. So yeah, I think that's everything. You know, if we were making an access group, like, or say logging for it, then we'd have to make the CloudWatch log group. That might be something we might want to put in here. We could also have our own layer for managing that as well. I'm not sure what people think about that, but I'm going to go back here and just look at my cluster, see if there's anything that is of interest to me that I'm missing. Now I'm doing task definitions in here. Yeah, the question is why? So why would I do task definitions in here? I've probably had a good reason. And the only one they actually have here, it looks like, is the Envoy one. So I suppose that was just specifically for the gateway service, because this is something that you needed to have for app mesh to work. And so it makes sense to have that target group, because it's going to be like a one deploy, never touch again, right? There probably are some outputs that we want to do here. You can see that we're bringing the VPC ID through here again, HPS, ARN, other stuff like that. So that's something we'll consider. But maybe what we'll do is go take a look at that cross-reference stack. So in here, it looks like what I did is I didn't actually cross-reference the stack. What I did was I just put in the VPC ID and pass it along. So it really is up to you how you want to do it, because sometimes it makes sense to cross-reference a stack. Other times you want those outputs, but you don't want to have that tight coupling because it can be really frustrating. So let me just think about it for a second, okay? You know, I thought about it, and I just think we should do cross-reference stacks just so that we get the experience with it. But again, you know, it really depends on when you work with these templates. I think in the past that I found that in some places the cross-reference stacks were a bit of a headache, because you can't update the exported output values if another stack is already imported, so you'd have to roll back dependent stacks. So it just depends on what kind of relationship you want to have with these files. So I think this is something that I do want to do. And I think the other thing is that we want to indicate whether something is going to be a cross-reference stack value or not. So I'm going to go here and indicate that this is something special. So maybe we can go here and change this to be, can we get like a slash in between? No. If it goes here, nothing interesting. And so maybe we'll just say like cross-reference stack. I don't really like that. Maybe we just change the head. So maybe if it's directly referenced, we'll use the direct one. If it's not, we use an empty one. If we run into those things, because I think there are cases where you are referencing values, but you're not doing it through exports. So I've done exports quite a bit. I'm not seeing it in this file. So I usually can tell because in the parameters you're importing from the other one. So probably we do have an example of this. I mean, I have lots of repos with code, but what we'll do is we'll take a look at the service one, because that one definitely will be using a cross-reference stack, or it should be. And so we'll go into here, and we have Envoy images. This one is not helping at all either, so that is fine. I definitely have something, so we'll find one. I'm gonna look in another repo here. Maybe we'll say like CI/CD. Well, I mean, this is another thing we need to do, and this could use cross-reference stacks, so we'll take a look and see if we can find it. Maybe I just, at this point, I was fed up with cross-reference stacks, and I just stopped using them at this point. Or maybe they're in here, they're just not showing up in here, because I keep looking here for it. But really where it comes from is this export value, or import maybe. So import value, function import value, and this would be the stack name and the name of it. So I believe that this is the function that we are looking for. So let's go over here and take a look. Returns an output from an exported stack by another stack. So that is what we are looking for, okay? And what we need to do here is we also need to have this attribute here passed in. So this would be, where is this? So what we want to do, yeah, in our parameters, all we want to do is pass in the name of the stack. So we'll go over here to the top here. And we will go ahead in our parameters. We'll say networking stack. If we want, we can put descriptions here. So this should be, this is our base layer of networking components. E.g. VCP subnets, okay? So we have the networking stack there, and then we need to use that import value. We need this for the VPC ID. So that's for this here. This is kind of finicky because we are doing, sometimes it can get kind of weird based on how we need to nest it, because we have to do this import value and then a sub, and you can't do these on the same line. So this is the way that I find that it works the best, is to have function import value like this, and then sub. If you tried to do them in one line, I'll show you what I mean here in a second. If you're to try to do this, like this, it will not work. It will mess up. So the best thing that we can hope for is to do it this way here. And that's what I would recommend to do. So I'll go here and I'll do VPC ID. And this is called networking stack. And then we'll go and find the other VPC ID here. I'll put that there. I believe there is something for subnets in here. I could have swore we had to set subnets or something. I thought we did. For the load balancer, right? The ALB. So let's go back and take a look at the ALB here. Yeah, subnets right here. So we haven't specified them. This is a bit tricky because they come in as a string, and so then we need to break them up into an array, right? So the function thing will be very similar. We're going to do this. Okay, and then we'll go subnets. Looking for those subnets. And then we'll paste that in. And so the trick here is that this is probably expecting an array. And so this is returning a string. And so we need to split this into a string. So let's go look at some of the intrinsic functions. And we have a split here. So to split a string into a list of string values, apply your split string, use select function to pick a specific element. We don't need a specific element. We just need to split this string. So we'll go down below here, and what it wants, it says function split, delimiter, source string. So we'll go ahead and grab this for the moment, so we don't forget how that works. And I'm gonna hope that I just get this right the first time. By the way, did we get the indentation wrong here? We did, so I'll go ahead and fix that. Small issue, subnets here. And so we have import the value. And so I think this is what we want to do. We want to first split it. And this is an array, so we have to make this the array. And then the first value of the array is the delimiter, so we'll make it that. And then the next thing is, this is the next item in the array, but it is an array of, it is the source value. So that's the array split. Okay, so then this would take this, and then I'll put this on this line here. And so I think this should work. Again, this is very tricky. This is where it kind of gets we're using more than one, you have to make sure that you understand what you're looking at for those indentation levels. But I think this is correct. Implicit map keys must be followed by a map value in YAML. Yeah. We'll bring this up on a, we can't have this on the same line, so we'll bring this in here. And so this is where we're getting some complaints. Maybe if we wrap this in double quotations, it will stop complaining. No, so yeah, when you get something like this, again, you can make it a singular line, but what we can do here is just go FN and import value. Or sorry, what was it? Sub. So it would be FN sub, like that. And so notice it stopped complaining. So sometimes that's what you can best hope for. The other reason it could have messed up is because it's not indented correctly. So maybe it meant it wanted it like that. And so that was the problem there, because that really is a value of that. So probably this will work. But you can see that this can get kind of complex when you have 3 of these and you've got to play around with it. We can make it just JSON, straight up JSON in a straight line, and then it'd be very easy to do. And sometimes you'll see me do that. But I've gotten pretty good at this, so you know, if by all means, if you can't get this combination here, just make it a JSON of those values, and you'll have an easier time. So I think those were the 2 ones that we need to import there. For the network stack name, what did we call that stack? I think we just called it Crutter, which is not actually the name that we should call it. So if we go down to our deploy cluster, we called it Crutter. And so the stack name really should be like Crutter Network or something. I like to do an abbreviation, like when I have, like for Teacher Seat, I do TS. For Exam Pro, I do EXP. And so for Crutter, we might want to, name something here in short for it. So because then once we have this, we'll have like Crutter. We don't have a Crutter networking, and then there's this name as well, and it gets way too long. So I'm going to go here and just name this SRD Crutter Net. Okay, CRD for Crutter. Crutter, yeah. And then net for that one. And then for this one, we'll say CRD cluster. Okay, this is Crutter cluster. This is Crutter network. And then we'll have to tear down networking here. Then we'll have to tear down that other one there, okay? So we'll go back over to our actual AWS account. We'll go over to CloudFormation. And I'm going to go and tear down our CloudFormation one. Or a Crutter one, sorry. Now, the other thing is that we already are using these namespaces. Like I'm using the Crutter namespace and stuff like that. And so basically, we can leave the other stuff running, but I'm going to just tear it down. But you just have to consider that when we do tear it down, we might lose some information. And so we have to make sure we know what we're doing when we're setting this configuration. As you saw with the ALB, I was going through and looking at the actual configuration of the stuff. Whereas when we set the cluster here, that's going to be a different story. We'll do this one step at a time, okay? While that's deleting, what we'll do is go over to our cluster in ECS. And I'll go here. And we'll go into Crutter. Make sure you stop your tasks because we need to, or you can just delete the services. Because I don't think I'm going to run into too many troubles trying to figure out how to configure this. ALB, etc., replica. I think we'll be okay to figure this out. If not, we'll stumble through. It'll be fun. And I'll go over here into Crutter, and I'm going to take these 2 services. I'm going to delete them. Force delete the services so they stop the tasks. And we'll delete that. And then the next thing we'll delete is our load balancer. We'll delete our namespace because I don't want to end up with name conflicts. And also, I want to make sure that you aren't spending more than you should by running double resources here, okay? So it looks like those services are gone. It says they're draining, so I'll have to wait here a bit. So I'll be back when these are done draining, okay? Actually, you know what? While we're waiting, let's see if we can rip down the ALB. Maybe it'll let us tear that down. So I'll go into our load balancer here. Or sorry, our target groups. And I'll see if it lets us delete those. It might not let us. Delete. Are used by listeners. So we'll go into our load balancers here. We'll click into that. We'll go down to our listeners. And can I delete those, please? Delete listeners. Confirm. Great. Then I can go to my target groups. We'll go ahead and delete those. Great. Then we'll go back to our load balancer here, and we will delete our load balancer, see if it lets us get rid of that here. How do we delete that? Click into it, I guess. Delete load balancer. Great. Does it feel great to delete all these things? All the hard work you've done and you're deleting them? So those are deleted. We'll go back over to the cluster, because we're basically starting over from scratch, but just defining it in code now. So we have this. I'm going to go ahead and delete the cluster here, delete CRUDder. I think actually when we made this, we might have even explicitly defined the CloudWatch log group. That might be something that we might want to do. But anyway, I want to get rid of the namespace here. So we should have this CRUDder namespace. This is an app mesh, by the way, or a cloud map. So we'll go over to cloud map to get rid of that, because I don't think we can delete it through here. And I'll go here and give this a go. Click into that. Maybe it's these associated services. We'll delete that. We'll delete this. Great. I'm going to go back to namespaces. We'll go ahead and delete that namespace. Okay, so that stuff is deleted. Okay. And actually, well, you know what's interesting is that, I have templates for my Fargate service. I have it for the CI/CD pipeline, but I actually have templates for Fargate here for the service itself. And I actually kind of wonder if we even need to do that, because I don't know why, but I never really clicked in that when you deploy a Fargate service, that it creates a CloudFormation template for you. So like here I have this, but this thing will get blown away anyway. So I'm not sure if we actually even want to create it this way. We might want to manage our task definitions, but the service itself, I'm not 100% sure that we'll actually want to add that there. So that might be something that we might want to consider. But anyway, what we want to do here is just refresh. Those are gone. Those are good. So I think we've cleaned up all of our resources here. Let's go back over to CloudFormation, wherever that is. So CFN here. And we'll go over to CloudFormation. And that stack is gone. That's great. So we'll go back now here, and let's go ahead, and maybe this is a great time for us to add a bit more flags. I'm not sure. I do have that TOML file that I would like to configure. But maybe we could hold off on that for now. So anyway, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and, I guess, deploy the network stack again. So we'll go here and do bin. Bin CNF. And we'll do networking deploy. And we'll go ahead and deploy that. And we're going to be checking for names, making sure that we are naming those things correctly. Okay, and we'll go back over to CloudFormation here. I'm going to give this a refresh. So we have CRUDnet, and we'll just use this to bring that down. We'll go to our change set. We'll take a look here. This looks good to me. That's all great. We'll go ahead and execute that change set. We'll execute it again. While we're waiting, we're going to go over to our template here for our networking stack. We're going to set this to a default of CRUDnet, because now we know that's the name of it, right? So that will make our lives a lot easier. By the way, what did we use as our import for the subnet? I don't even remember. Let's go look at it again. Subnets. And here, this one says, oh, we didn't even change this out. So this, what is this expecting? That's what I don't know. And we do use this in the other one here. So maybe we can kind of figure that out by looking at the other code here. So, I mean, we could obviously just go look it up, but I'm just going to go look at my reference here to figure it out. And we'll click into the template here. And I'll scroll on down, and I'm looking for subnets. So this is a list of subnet IDs. That's what we want, is a list of subnet IDs. So what I'm going to do here is bring over the subnet IDs then from the first template. So we're going to go into the networking template here, and we'll go all the way down to the bottom. VPC ID, VPC CIDR. Subnet IDs is what it's called. Okay, Subnet IDs, yeah, it's named the same, so I'll just go here and replace that. And so I think this is all rigged correctly. I expect us to have problems, but if we don't, that would be great. We will go back over here. And we'll go back and see if this deploy was successful. We go here. Stack created, no problems. We'll go over to our outputs. Whoops. Our outputs here. And notice this is the export name. I don't know if we need to add the stack name in front of there. That's something that I'm actually not sure about. So what I'll do is I'll go take a look and see what I've done here, if I've done any exports. You know what? For the export, I actually put the stack name in. So that's something that we're going to have to do. So this one is mucked up. I don't know if it lets us change those. So what I'm going to do, even though this seems it might be easier just to do a simple deploy, I'm going to delete this. This is something we're going to be doing a lot, creating and deleting CloudFormation stacks. But I'm going to actually put in sub on all these. So we'll say sub, double quotations, and then we'll say AWS, : stack name, : we don't need : there. That makes no sense. So there's that. And we'll just keep doing that for these subnet IDs. And then we'll go up here. Subnet CIDR blocks. VPC CIDR block. VPC ID. Okay, and so this is the new setup. Hopefully that will be better here. We're just going to give this a refresh, make sure the stack is deleted. That is deleted. We'll go back over here. We will hit up. I'm going to deploy my networking stack. End of file was found on line 211. So we'll go down here. Double quotation missing. Here we go. We'll try this again. I'll see you back here in a moment when this is, well, first we should accept it before I say I'm going to wait here. Stacks, CredNet. Where's my change set? Did it fail? No, it says that it made a change set. So we'll go back over to CloudFormation here. We'll go to stacks here, refresh, change sets. Here it is. Go ahead and execute that. I'll be back here in just a second, okay? All right, so after a short little wait here, I believe this is done. And so we'll go back and check our outputs. And so now these are the names, CredNet, availability zones, and stuff like that. We can also see what the values look like. So when we do need to use them. So yeah, that looks all good to me. But yeah, let's go ahead. And I suppose, do we have the AZs there as well? Yes, we do. That's great. So yeah, I suppose what we'll do here now is make sure that this one can deploy. So I guess we'll go ahead here and see what happens. It's going to do a lint first anyway, so we'll find out what happens there. And we'll scroll up here. This says here, parameter front-end health check not used, front-end health check not used. A lot of these are not being used, and that's not true. They should be getting used, so clearly I have a problem in my code. So I'm just going to close some of these tabs out because I want to just see this template here. So we will open this up as such. We will scroll up. And we'll go down below here. So what is it complaining about? It's saying front end is not being used. So this one's back end. I mean, it must be a spelling mistake, right? So we'll go here. Front end, healthy, threshold, whoops. Oh, it's not auto-completing that one. But it is right here. I can see it. So we go here and can I search the file, please? Oh, boy. // sorry. It's because I'm using Vim. And so it's not showing that this is being used. So that's interesting because it definitely should be. We'll go down below to our front-end one here. Oh, you know what? This is missing the Y here. So we'll go here. Front-end healthy health check. Front-end healthy threshold count. Front-end healthy threshold count. So that should be this here. So that one's just wrong. Okay, that's one that's wrong. Is that the same thing with the back end? Wow, I mucked this up a bit. Healthy threshold count. Healthy threshold count. And so this is supposed to be healthy back end count here. Back end healthy threshold count. So fix this one. This one looks wrong, so we'll go here and make sure this one's correct as well. You can see it gets a little bit confusing when you're looking at this much, but that's when you kind of start to think, okay, should I be using some other tool? But anyway, we'll go here and we'll hit up, and I'm sure we'll see less errors now, I hope. And it's less, I suppose. Now we have invalid property resource ALB name on line 109. So I'm going to go to line 109. We'll jump to that. Load balancer attributes name. So we'll click through here to see what the syntax error is. Maybe it's not called name. Maybe we did a bad copy paste. It's called key. Okay, that's obviously my fault. So we'll go here and we'll do key, 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 key. So you can kind of see there's some inconsistencies between service teams with AWS and how they do this stuff. We'll go here. Any errors? So here, oh, we didn't import this. So when creating create change set, certificate ARN must have values. So this is something that we definitely want to import. And so at this point is where we want to actually bring in an external value. So that's something that we have yet to do. And so I think I would like to use my CFN TOML file because that's like how I like to pass them in. I think it makes it a lot easier. And then, you know, if my open source project blows up, then I'll become CloudFormation famous. Probably not. But the thing is that what we can do here is pass in parameters. If we go to our Fargate cluster here, and so we go to the bin. And the thing is that we pass in parameters over here. So we can load all our parameters from a file and then pass them specifically over. And so normally what you'd have to do is you have to hard code them, but you know, there is no tool, there's no like way of loading .env files into CloudFormation or YAML files or stuff like that. You have to do the work yourself. And so that's why I wrote my own script. I mean, you could hard code the values in here and just pass in the environment variables. I suppose that is one way to do it. But I do think it's kind of worth to have .env files or TOML files to work with. And so I think that's what I'm going to do. So what I'm going to do here is stop the video. I'm going to consider what we've done here done. But what we're going to have to do is solve that certificate ARN for the imports. Okay, so I'm just going to go here and just say WIP. Of course, for your commit messages, write them nice, write them good, because I have to check your commit history. And I'll see you in the next one here in a moment, okay?